He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
Warwick.
Sarah.
Hi.
Hi. Sarah, this is my mate. Well,
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, Tanya, come in. Do you want to sit there and sit there?
Yeah.
Take a seat.
Okay.
How are you feeling?
It's 2003, St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, London. Warwick's walking into his doctor's office.
In the next 15 minutes, I'll find out which direction I'm going for sure.
He's about to discover whether an alternative energy therapy has cured him of his HIV.
I'm feeling really good, you know?
Physically?
Physically, really good. Apart from, I confess, I am nervous.
Sarah, his NHS doctor, has been incredibly accommodating this far, forestalling any professional scepticism. Now, the science speaks.
The main reason we're here, of course, is to get your result.
Warwick's been getting 6 months of therapy at the Energy Bank, a branch of Aiping Wong's wellness cult based at the lodge in Te Anau. When he started, Warwick had a T-cell count of 220, making him very vulnerable to infection. T-cells are a measure of the strength of the human immune system, the scientific measure that the Energy Bank has chosen to prove its case.
The Energy Bank were promising him a T-cell count of 800 and a total elimination of the virus.
Practically quadrupling his immunity, that was the promise. Warwick's been getting regular checkups, but he asked not to see the results while he did his therapy, not till today. Sarah, Warwick's doctor, takes a deep breath.
So essentially things are stable.
Yeah.
The T-cell count, I have to say, is really unchanged. It's certainly not dropped, which is the good thing. Nothing has progressed, nothing's got worse, but I have to be honest with you, nothing's got better either.
Yeah, no.
Better was what Warwick was hoping for, much better, a cure. How was the Energy Bank, how were manager Sarah McCrum and guru Aiping Wong going to explain away this result? Kia ora, I'm Phil Vine from RNZ, and this is The Lodge, the fall and rise of a wellness cult, a podcast about healing, about the power of belief, its lasting effects on the believers and the believed.
When I gave him the result on camera, he was sort of quite together about it.
You're hearing this audio from a BBC documentary.
Actually, I sensed that he was feeling rather upset, and as soon as the cameras removed, he was sort of broke down.
He is Warwick, a Kiwi actor living in London, living with HIV. Sarah was his doctor. And there's no gentle way of putting this. Warwick's $75,000 experiment at the Energy Bank has failed miserably. He writes in his diary,
I haven't felt so vulnerable since I got diagnosed as HIV positive.
in a surprise move, Warwick tells Sarah he's going to keep on with Aiping's energy therapy for the time being, despite its lack of results.
What I'd like to do, I guess it's also because I get a lot of emotional support from that. I just keep doing the same thing for the next couple of weeks.
Sure.
At least.
Nothing dramatic I can imagine is going to happen to you in the next couple of weeks, but I think we need to be sort of long-term planning.
The night that Warwick got his very disappointing results, he went back to the Energy Bank because they were having a phone-in with Aiping, who was being beamed in from somewhere, just an audio phone-in. And they had people coming in from all over the world. You know, it was like, Switzerland, are you with us? New Zealand, are you there? This place, that place. And he could barely speak at that point. He was so disappointed.
Okay. Any question?
I'm going to ask something, Mark.
I got my results and basically the same. My T-cell count is still very similar.
The T-cell counts are similar. They're pretty much the same
As they were before. And I see myself in the fourth dimension. I see myself as a single, lonely gay man who's HIV positive. The worst possible scenario of all. How do How do I leave that scenario?
Okay, he says that in the fourth dimension, he sees himself as single, lonely, gay man. Anything else?
Who's HIV positive?
Who is HIV positive, and he wants to know how to break out of that image of himself.
And here's Aiping's answer.
Okay. Warwick, when you drive the car, you look at yourself body. Look at yourself fingers. Or you look at yourself the feet. Or you look at yourself the heart. Or you try to look at yourself the head.
Again, with the whimsical storytelling.
Look on the mirror of yourself. Or you look at the wheel. What will it be?
And Warwick has to provide his own answer.
I think you'll crash.
He said you'll crash.
I was feeling really rotten, and it was a really heavy-duty night. You never get a clear answer from Aiping, you know. It's like, you know, you asking for practical help and to go balance a teacup on your head or something.
So how did Aiping's manager, Sarah McCrum, account for the failure?
It's not the process itself that's wrong. It's always us that have to change.
She's speaking to the BBC documentary crew on a video link from the lodge.
I'm absolutely sure that it will move. If he can keep going, it will move. I can't say Warwick is wrong. I can say clearly that there are things he doesn't understand, for sure. Otherwise, if he really understood, it would have changed already.
What is it he needs to understand, Sarah?
Good question, Annie.
I don't actually think that that's something one can say for sure. Every single person is different. There is another way. And we would like to help Warwick, if that's what he wants, to be able to find that other way.
Earlier, Sarah McCrum made a remark which, to this day, Annie finds quite incredible.
I made a note somewhere actually about this. Hold on, I'll see if I can find it because it was extraordinary. Oh yeah, illness is a question of morality, she said.
This is precisely what Sarah McCrum said.
It's not old-fashioned morality, but everything in life happens according to certain rules, which are the rules of nature. And if you break the rules, then things begin to go wrong. If you can change your behaviour enough, the results are guaranteed.
If you break the rules, then things begin to go wrong. If you change your behaviour, results are guaranteed.
You're gay, then you're promiscuous, then you're a druggie, and you've done everything wrong as far as they're concerned. That's immoral to me, to say that to someone, you know? Basically, you don't believe enough, you behave badly, that's why you are the way you are, and you're going to die unless you do this.
God, I didn't know you could run that fast, Warwick.
I didn't know I could even hit the ball.
From the start, Warwick's flatmates have been dubious about the energy bank, especially Thomas.
It seems to me that the whole system of involvement and the way the energy bank is organized is based on non-questioning. I hear slogans, all illness is an energy blockage, and it makes me feel very uneasy.
Since Warwick's disappointing results at the energy bank, Thomas's initial unease seems well-founded.
I expected that they would play exactly this kind of game of, if things work out, they take all the credits. If things don't work out, it's his fault.
The energy experiment had failed, and according to Aiping and the energy bank, it was him to blame.
I'm so sick of failure, and it's like I'm less afraid of dying than I am of living, of going back to live the life that I had before.
By that time, he'd invested so much of himself into it, and he'd kind of taken himself down layer by layer that I don't know how much he had to fight back with.
Then Sarah McCrum from the energy bank made Warwick 2 offers. She told Warwick the energy bank would wipe his 70 grand debt, and if he went back to New Zealand, he could be helped one-on-one with Aiping at the lodge.
Which I think was to do with the fact that he was involved with the BBC, he was making this film, they were exposed, everything they'd claimed for the last 6 months, none of it had happened, you know? So therefore their answer to that was, well, We promised you that we would do this in London. It hasn't worked, so we're wiping your debt and come to New Zealand where you will be permanently exposed to Aiping.
Warwick couldn't make up his mind. Should he take up the offer and carry on with Aiping's energy treatment, living with other followers at the lodge, breaking down his ego, correcting more of his behaviour, his morality, until he succeeded?
She's confident it can work, but it depends. It depends on my own input. Dealing in this area is all a bit like dealing with magic, or what I consider magic to be.
Or does he reject the magic and start taking conventional medicine, antiretrovirals, drugs which have allowed people with HIV to live long, natural lives? Without them, his doctor Sarah was clear, Warwick only had 5 to 10 years left.
I really would like to live out my full 3 score years and 10, plus another score year and 10 on top of that, you know. I would like to die a natural death, and I certainly, and I am, so I'm unsure. I'm unsure what I'll do.
A natural death or a long life? What a choice.
I personally think he cannot be cured there. He'll either go on combination therapy or he'll die.
I want to go back to the middle of Annie's film now. That bit in Croatia. Warwick's in a boho straw hat, dark sleeveless singlet, with a string bag slung diagonally across his chest, walking down a luminous Adriatic street. It's a scene that caught my eye first time through. In the background, red flowers and cafes with European beer-branded umbrellas. There's a woman walking alongside him in sunglasses, with a white shirt, a bum bag, and jean shorts, and a familiar voice.
New Zealand's beautiful as well, but it's pretty cold.
I'd recognise her anywhere. It's Suzanne, one of the ex-followers I'd interviewed in 2004 after she fled from the lodge.
All I had to do was learn how to relax, and it would solve all my problems. And I was like, man, I can do that.
Suzanne's the one we met in Ep 1, the follower who'd arrived at the lodge with her mum from California. They'd paid Aiping $1.5 million. You know, the one, Eddie's partner, that one. Warwick had come from London for the Aiping intensive in Bol, Croatia. Suzanne had flown all the way from HQ at the lodge in Tiano, New Zealand.
In fact, they gravitated together. Very spirited, very intelligent. Yeah, she was in Croatia at the same time as we were filming there when he went off for his intensive month.
What was your take on her?
She was very funny because she was very sceptical at first. I mean, she said, "What? You guys have got a master?"
Suzanne would tell me the same story about her first contact with Aiping. This was way before Croatia and the lodge. Back in the early 90s, her mum Sharon had convinced her wayward daughter to come along to an energy event in the States. Aiping dialed in.
My first visit was in Boulder, Colorado. It was a session with Aiping over the phone.
Suzanne's diminutive and slight, with wavy light brown hair. You'd never leave a room wondering what she might have been thinking.
I said, so when are you guys going to put your Nikes on and shave your head? Take the truth serum like the Heaven's Gate cult. And they all kind of laughed, but they were serious.
One phone session, and Suzanne was completely convinced.
And whatever this woman has, at the end of the phone call, Suzanne, whose family had quite a lot of money, decided that she had the answers to all her questions and she was going to follow her forever.
There's an odd moment in Annie's doco when she interviews Suzanne in Croatia. One of the unique aspects of Aiping's life technology is something they call a 10-hand massage, where up to 5 people at a time are working on you. Not to everyone's taste. Suzanne's lying on a massage table, dressed only in a white towel, looking straight ahead at the camera, her fingers interlaced, on which she rests her chin. Aiping's followers, all in white, massaging her legs as she talks.
I believe that it's a new way of life. I believe it's going to become society. It's definitely a global aim. We're trying to reach 6 billion people, and we will, because they need it.
You know, she is maniacal in her, we film her having a sort of 4-person massage, and she at that stage is a full-on belief system, in place.
Suzanne sounds like a cross between a televangelist and a supervillain.
Energy can be transmitted through anything. Our goal now is to use TV to transmit energy to 6 billion people, because people can get healed and healthy and better relationships and more money and peace and happiness by watching TV. Can you imagine?
So she swallowed the Bible, the Energy Bank Bible.
Suzanne had been in her 30s when she flew to New Zealand in the late 90s with her mother, Sharon, a psychologist. Suzanne's from a well-to-do family. Her dad's a successful surgeon. She had a BA in communication from Southern Methodist in Texas.
I think at that time I was desperate. I was searching. I think that probably I could have been persuaded by a great many of people. She just happened, she was the one.
Suzanne also had a drug problem, the snortable kind.
She was a cocaine addict at the time. So again, very vulnerable.
Suzanne, an accomplished gymnast, narrowly missed out on making the US Olympic team. It nudged her into depression, as she tells it, and nose first into the white stuff. Rehab had failed twice.
So, her addiction to cocaine had been replaced with a kind of addiction to this belief system, really, I think, And yet, there was something huge missing in her life that she felt she was fine, that she felt Aiping was the answer to.
And there's a sad corollary to that story. I explained to Annie what had gone down back at the lodge in the year after those bold statements in Croatia. How Suzanne's mum, Sharon, got really sick. How the energy therapy didn't work for her either.
They were healing her energetically, Phil. By golly, by now you should know.
How does that go, though?
I don't know. It obviously doesn't work because she's dead.
Sharon had originally presented at the lodge with chronic fatigue syndrome. This is manager Sarah McCrum talking to me about Sharon's treatment in 2004.
I don't want to go into too much detail because some of it's quite personal, but Sharon, basically, she used a combination of energy, which is what we offer, and acupuncture with a professional acupuncturist who was also formerly a Western doctor.
After getting energy treatment and acupuncture for that condition, Sharon discovered a small lump in her breast. Suzanne says her mother, deep in her belief, thought it was a positive sign.
This lump on her breast was just cleaning.
So this was a good thing?
Absolutely. It was good. It was cleaning out of the body. It was coming out. It was so much better that it was coming out than that it was staying in.
Sharon went to Queensland, Australia, for a short holiday to get some respite from the cold of Fiordland. She ended up in a hospital in Cairns with pain in her arm after hurting herself flushing a toilet and causing a fracture. After a scan, Suzanne says the doctors told her mum she had breast cancer. It had already spread to her bones, as I explained to Annie. And what she told me was that she didn't want to get conventional treatment because she thought, like Warwick, that Aiping would cure her.
She was still having sessions over there with Aiping.
How?
By phone. Over the phone. My mom said she wasn't dying. She said she wanted Aiping. Aiping wouldn't come.
She wouldn't come?
No.
Aiping didn't have time to go to Australia. She was busy recording some rejuvenation CDs. The guru asked Sharon to come back to the lodge. Sharon was too weak to travel. Aiping sent 3 of her students from the lodge to visit Sharon in hospital in Cairns, an energy team, to give Sharon confidence and to help her relax, to help her to receive the energy and release her pain.
I wouldn't wish that situation upon anyone. That's all I can say. It was pretty awful. She was on pain medicine, but they didn't want to give her pain medicine because it's against the energy and the Shin-Chi and...
Shin-Chi is Aiping's version of Qigong, which she taught at the Phenomena Academy. It's also called Life Technology. Sharon never made it back to the lodge. She died in Cairns, aged 63.
She was my best friend in the whole world, and yeah, I lost her. And in the end, I think she died a really horrific death.
This Suzanne, so changed by her experience, so different from the woman that Annie filmed, understandably so.
I miss my mom more than I can express in words. I think that my mom trusted Aiping and the Shinchi and the Takaro and trusted and gave everything she had for them to help her. And I don't think that they helped her.
I mean, the first photograph is a small melanoma on the beside the eye, which looks inflamed.
Can you cast your mind back, please, to EP1? Remember those photos that I described, a series of shots culminating in a hideous growth on the side of a man's face, obscuring his left eye?
But it became quite a big tumour, about half the size of my fist, I suppose.
Senior Sergeant Brian Hewitt. Straight back, serious, soup-straining moustache. The man in his 30s in the pictures, his name was Yanis. Yanis had developed skin cancer while living at the lodge. The photos had been taken by other followers over a period of months and years. Do you have any understanding as to why they did that?
I believe to try and show how they were going to cure it, but that, of course, didn't happen.
Yanis had been an avid follower of Aiping Wong. I'm not sure of his complete backstory. He was a computer technician from Slovenia. I think he came into contact with Aiping in his home country before she set up the Phenomena Academy at the lodge near Te Anau. Then he followed her out to New Zealand.
He said he was happy. I mean, it's hard to say what impression I had. I didn't believe him.
Yanis's brother, Warwick, a short, solid, tightly wound journalist. I met Warwick in his small Soviet-era apartment block in the Slovenian capital. There were bikes cluttering the narrow hallway. His partner had gone out. We drank black coffee.
What sort of treatment was he getting?
I was told he had a treatment of Shinchi.
And what was that supposed to do?
I don't know. I don't believe it can help. I mean, the result is that I'm right. It can't help.
I mean, he had this tumour over you couldn't look at him. I don't know if you saw any pictures.
Caroline. We met her last ep. She was one of the other followers living with Warwick's brother at the lodge.
But it was enormous, that tumour.
Warwick found out about the melanoma in his brother's dying days. He flew to New Zealand, drove straight to the lodge, and asked to see Aiping.
I was told something like that. It's not supposed to disturb her or something.
She couldn't be disturbed even though your brother was dying?
Yeah.
Do you feel angry?
Yeah, sure.
The melanoma by then, which had started off as a small spot, yeah. It was, how big was it when you saw it?
I don't like to talk about this, but it was big.
Can you remember how you felt when you first saw him?
Yeah, I was shocked. Yeah.
So how long did you have with him?
I was with him. He died 3 hours after I had arrived.
A post-mortem revealed that Yanis had died from cancer. Police did investigate Yanis's death at the lodge back in 2004, but no criminal charges were laid.
We may consider that morally there's been something done wrong, but there's nothing criminally. Yanis was an intelligent adult and he made the decision.
Have you any thoughts about why he made that decision?
I do, but I don't think I'll comment on them.
Warwick told me that his brother had signed a document saying he didn't want to see a conventional doctor and his family should not be contacted.
If Aiping Wang would have any power, my brother would be alive today, right?
Do you blame Aiping Wang?
Not legally, perhaps, but responsible in that sense that I told she created the environment where this happened.
Police found Yanis's body in one of the rooms at Takaro Lodge with a photo of Aiping Wang by the bedside, surrounded by pieces of metal and buckets of water. Sergeant Hewitt.
I understand it was something to do with his energy or lack of energy in some fields.
And so what did the buckets of water and wire have to do with it, do you know?
I think that he was deemed to have lack of energy in the water field and in the metal field.
Water and metal, fire, earth and wood being the 5 elements. According to what I've read, each of the elements represents a distinct quality of the chi energy, vital to the continual health and flow of nature. Here's a quick overview from Dr. Emily Yang from Western Sydney University.
So the 5 elements in Chinese medicine, we believe that human beings is also part of the nature. That thing is also kind of like worldview, how we look at the world. So many things can have the characteristics of metal, or some have characteristics of fire, water, or earth. So in our body, it's like a small universe. For example, fire is relevant to heart, and our lung is relevant to metal. Earth is relevant to our stomach, and water is relevant to our kidney.
You might remember the 5 elements from Warwick's experiment at the Energy Bank in London, his time in the water room there for his kidneys.
I'm in here to build up my kidneys because I've got weak kidneys.
It may not have worked for Warwick's HIV, but don't get me wrong. Full respect to traditional Chinese medicine. You can't argue with 5,000 years of healing people. What I'm wondering about, though, is scope. What can traditional Chinese medicine be used for? And what are the conditions beyond its reach? Trained in the Chinese practice of Tai Chi, a form of Qigong, Dr. Yang straddles east and west. Her research centres on the effectiveness of traditional Chinese medicine and how it can be measured and quantified by Western science.
I see Chinese medicine works for many diseases like heart disease, hypertension, diabetes. I saw many patients, they benefit from Chinese medicine's treatment.
I guess what I'm looking at is the danger, I suppose, of people abandoning conventional treatment like insulin for diabetes or antiretrovirals for HIV or chemotherapy for cancer, abandoning those and instead taking alternative treatments.
Yeah, I agree with you. As I mentioned that patient safety and patient's well-being is our priority. So evidence-based practice should be applied for not only conventional medicine, but also complementary and alternative medicines.
And she finds the idea of trialling an unproven alternative therapy for conditions like HIV or melanoma quite unsettling.
We would never put patients in a very uncertain way, which will have high risk to their health. So in this case, we would never do a research if we didn't have 100% evidence clearly show that it will work for the patients.
Emily says that until they've been rigorously proven against things like cancer, Chinese therapies are best offered as a complementary approach, a +1, alongside conventional medicine. Unproven offerings from the world of wellness are already affecting people's health for the worse in a measurable way. John Patrick Allen has a lab program at Rutgers investigating how social media in the wellness arena is shaping outcomes for things like cancer.
we spend a lot of time following different conversations on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, etc. And, this is kind of the day-to-day operations. And about a year and a half ago, I started noticing conversations in the health and wellness space that were really quite problematic. If one is unfortunate enough to get diagnosed with cancer, we want that person to get access to cancer treatment, effective, proven cancer treatment as fast as possible. And what I was seeing in the social media space is individuals claiming to have alternative ways to not just prevent a cancer diagnosis, but to cure cancer. And I just found this to be remarkable.
Access to the internet has really given wellness wings. The intimacy and immediacy of social media, taking fringe ideas, good and bad, and monetizing them. John Patrick says Eastern traditions like Qigong and Reiki and other energy healing practices often pop up in his social media monitoring program.
Well, I think in its different forms, yes. I think people talk about things that are about energy and positivity and putting things out into the universe. And that is a way of practicing, mindfulness is part of that as well. So yes, I've seen it in its various forms, for sure. And to be fair, I think, this idea of Reiki is considered safe and non-invasive energy healing modality. Like it's like not a problem, but it's most definitely not a substitute for conventional medical treatment. And so that's, like what you said, there's this point in time where people go from, well, here's a practice to consider to improve sleep, enhance relaxation, for reduction in anxiety and stress. And that's probably all accurate. And then it moves over to, well, here's an individual with an HIV diagnosis. Here's someone with a chronic disease or, a cancer diagnosis. These are two different things. For individuals where there are known treatments and for diseases that we know we can tackle, the idea that you're going to explore an alternative, I think that's sad. I do think it's a lot exploitative on the side of the service or person who's trying to convince someone that their cancer or HIV diagnosis can be overcome by positive feelings.
What gets me about Warwick's brother's death is that his cancer wasn't exactly hiding, lurking in his bowel or his lungs. It was as plain as the melanoma on his face. Why didn't someone, anyone at the lodge, not challenge Yanis's choice, if that's what it was, and say, Yanis, mate, let's at least get you to an oncologist and get a second opinion. You don't have to do what they say, but at least you've made an informed decision.
Yanis decided right from the very beginning that he didn't want any medical treatment. I was there many times when Aiping asked him privately in the office, also in front of other people, in many different situations, because she will always check with people. She would never she'd never want to push somebody, for example, to use energy if they're not sure.
Sarah McCrum, manager at the lodge at the time.
Aiping doesn't cure people. Aiping teaches people how to be healthy. I think that Yanis knew that it was quite difficult for him. I think that he knew that for himself.
Interesting statement from Sarah McCrum, well thought through. It puts the onus for treatment squarely back on the patient. The survival rate for melanoma, while it's still localised, is around 99%. I don't know for sure, no one can, but hospital treatment might well have saved this young man's life. But Yanis was too busy being taught how to be healthy. Just to explain my heightened sense of injustice here, a decade after I made the 2020 program about Sharon and Yanis' deaths, I got cancer myself and survived lymphoma. I know from personal experience that early intervention is critical. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. So I'm all about survivability rates. And I'm thinking now, why the hell didn't Yanis do both? Conventional and alternative. Why couldn't he have had some radiation or chemotherapy treatment, or at least get it cut out? alongside the energy therapy? Did Aiping or Sarah McCrum have something to prove? Was he nothing more than a guinea pig? The same with Warwick. According to his doctor, Aiping's energy bank demanded there be no other treatment. It was her way or the highway.
They basically said to him that he had to give up any notion of taking antiretroviral drugs for his HIV status and hand himself over to them, mind and body, for 6 months, and that they would cure him completely. They're not saying, come and we'll release positive energy that may help you alongside other things. They're saying it's to the exclusion of everything else. And that is, for me, their biggest sin, really.
After dabbling with alternative treatments myself during my brush with the sea dog, I'm a lot more open-minded. Just in case you're wondering, that doesn't stretch to leaping off mountainsides without a parapente. Flying, I can't do yet. But I'm not ready to entirely discount the idea that harnessing energy or consciousness or magic, or whatever you want to call it, could bring tangible mental and physical benefits for humans. But why does it have to be exclusive? If you're ill, like seriously ill, wouldn't you want to throw everything at it? The wah-wah, the woo-woo, as well as all the materialist options, and see what works? I would. I did. But maybe that's just me. You've been listening to Dealing with Magic, Ep 3 of 8 Eps of The Lodge. Coming up...
Hello, I'm from the 2020 program, New Zealand. I need to ask you a few questions.
Yes.
Isn't it about time we heard from Aiping Wong?
I suggest him to go to hospital, but he refused.
Why do you think he refused?
Because he know he cannot get help.
Aiping in a rare sit-down interview at the Lodge, where she explains why she didn't go to the bedside of Suzanne's dying mother.
I don't have time to go because I have all the time. I count with 1-2 students occupied for my time because my teaching is a group.
And the Grandmaster clears up all the chatter around levitation, the ability to fly. Is it a joke or is it real?
So far you don't see it's joke. What you see is real.
And hey, if anyone out there has some information about this wellness cult and its business activities, whether you're a follower, an ex-follower, or someone who knows someone who is, please get in touch. phil.vine@rnz.co.nz. Thanks for listening, and a special thanks to our guest, Emily Yang from Western Sydney University. Big ups to our marvellous RNZ engineers, Ben Pearce, Rangi Powick, and Jeremy Ansell. Thanks to my producery colleagues, Liz Garton, William Ray, and Justin Gregory. Cheers to Amrita Marks for the stunning tile visuals, Luke Bottle and Robert Stewart in our legal team, my executive editor, Tim Watkin, and the person that makes everything happen, Brianna Uritich-Gregg. Make sure you're following The Lodge wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. You can read more about this mind-boggling wellness cult and see photos of all the characters involved on the RNZ website. Links in the show notes. Shout out to Nick DeFries, Beatnik, for his music.